Hi class, welcome. This is Econ 170, U.S. Economic History, and I put together this little video here to sort of simulate our first day of class as we might do it if we were able to meet face to face and sitting in a classroom setting. A couple things I want to lay out here in this first video. Right? First thing that I want to do is to give you a sense of what the class is going to be about. Right? You're probably wondering, you probably have some idea of what U.S. economic history is about, but I want to talk in a little bit more detail regarding the topics that we're going to get into this semester. Secondly, I'm going to talk to you guys a little bit about who I am and where I'm coming from, right? To give you a little bit of a sense of my perspective and my background, because I think that's useful. And then third, I want to spend probably the majority of the video here kind of walking through how the class is structured, right? Once things get going on Monday morning, you'll see that the assignments are going to be coming pretty regularly. So it's important to take some time here during this first week to figure out exactly what you should be doing and what you need to do well in the class. All right. So U.S. economic history, right? The title, I think, is very suggestive of what we're going to learn about, but we're going to look back a couple hundred years throughout the history of our country with a big focus on the economy. And I make the case every semester that I teach this class that it's a super important topic. And I make that case every time, but sitting here in fall of 2020, I think it's even easier to make this argument that it's worth our time, right, to study economic history, right, with what's going on right now with COVID, with what's going on right now with our recession, with what's going on right now with elections coming up this very semester, with what's going on with protests, or with the stock market soaring, right? All of these things can be explained by looking back at what's happened throughout our history, right? Some of these things are novel. We haven't seen these things before. And in other cases, there's some precedent, right, where we've seen similar episodes throughout history. And so I'm really excited to be teaching this class in general, but especially during fall 2020. In detail, what are we going to look at? Well, one of the first big topics for us is going to be looking back to how the country was put together again post-Civil War. This is something, I hope this is, a bell is ringing in your head. This is something that's going to connect very closely to those issues related to protests that we've been seeing recently that I mentioned just a moment ago. Right? So we'll talk about the reconstruction of the United States after the Civil War. We're going to move ahead to another module, another unit, thinking about the importance of infrastructure. Right? So what is infrastructure? This is the systems, right? Roads, electricity, ports, airports, systems for facilitating clean water. Looking back in history, one really big infrastructure project that we saw was the completion of the Transcontinental Railroad, right? For the first time, a railroad spanning the width of our country. That was a big deal for obvious reasons. It connected and opened up a lot of the country to folks back east who, at the time, were not able to access land out west. And so that had some big consequences, as you might imagine. We're going to talk about the importance of technology, right? Looking to something called the Second Industrial Revolution, where we saw a lot of industrialization, right? A transition in our economy from an agrarian one, where we're focused on farming, to one where we're more focused on production in factories, right? And so that was a transition that took place in the 1800s, right? And obviously since then, we've evolved further, where the American economy today is not as dependent on factory production and instead produces other goods and services. We're going to talk about the importance of several wars, right? These are interesting and notable from historical perspectives, but for economic reasons as well, right? So we'll talk about World War I, we'll talk about World War II, right? The reasons why we found ourselves in these conflicts and what happened in the economy as a result of us taking these decisions to participate. We're going to talk about the Great Depression, of course, right? So the worst recession, the worst economic period in time in our history, and we'll make some comparisons to what we're seeing here in 2020. Really interesting to me as well is to think about what the government did at the time here in the 1930s to address the Great Depression. Right? What was the thinking then? What worked well? What didn't work as well? Why did the Depression last so long? And I like to look for things that we could maybe glean or learn from that in thinking about our current situation here in 2020. Lastly, then, the end of the class, we're going to talk about the New Deal, right? Programs in place to address the Great Depression in this period of sustained economic growth that we saw from maybe the 1940s to the 1970s, right? So that's going to be the bulk and the heart of the class, and you guys can tell by the way I'm talking about it, I'm interested in it. I think it's fun to learn about these things, and I hope you guys are similarly interested. Okay, some background information about me. So as I said, my name is Tyler Pronte. I teach economics, obviously. The main place that I teach is at Valley College. So Valley College, if you're not familiar, you guys probably know Valley, but if you don't, it's in Valley Glen, maybe about a half hour south of COC. That's where I teach mainly, but I live up here in Santa Clarita as well, and so I got an opportunity to teach a class here and there at COC, and I jumped on it because, for a lot of reasons. But I've been teaching here at COC for a couple years, at Valley for 10 years, and some other places before that. I've been teaching all in all maybe 12 years. I've been teaching economics, and I love it. I don't think it's a job for everyone, but for me, I can't think of a better job. I really enjoy it, and yeah, it's awesome. Usually I teach face-to-face classes, mainly with a couple online classes, but that's different, of course, during fall 2020. I'm doing all online, just like you guys are, which is, I'm finding, has some benefits and some drawbacks. Let's see here. In terms of personal stuff, I'm married. My wife and I have 2 kids. They're doing their little distance learning thing right outside my office right now. So really, I spend most of my time with those guys, with my family. But aside from that, my biggest interest is riding my bike. I like riding bikes in every form. I especially like riding mountain bikes, but I ride on the road as well. I've done some triathlon stuff. I'm crazy for it. It's my favorite thing. Aside from that, I just like being outside and being active. So I run, I'll swim sometimes. I love to go hiking, camping, things like that. Yeah, I like to read. I follow the news really closely. I'm kind of a news junkie. I'm a big fan of all sorts of dramas on HBO or Netflix or any of these services. Okay, that's some stuff about me. Let's move on then and start thinking about the mechanics here of Econ 170. How's the class set up? And importantly, what do you need to do, right? This is a big question that people have with online classes. Right, so first up, let's think about these assignments. My idea is that I want to give students different types of assignments throughout the term. This is really a good way for me to get a sense of what students are learning by trying to measure that learning in different ways. And so as a consequence, you're going to have different types of assignments. The most frequent is that you're going to have quizzes that occur that are based off of the reading that you'll encounter in the textbook, as well as a series of YouTube videos that I've put into Canvas, and you can watch on your own time. Right? So you'll find these quizzes. They're relatively short. They vary in terms of how long they are and how many questions are contained on each one. But a big part of the class are these, I call them module quizzes. So you'll go in, you'll do the reading, you'll watch the videos, take some notes on this, and take the quiz. One of the things to keep in mind about these quizzes is that you'll see they're pretty short, right? The quizzes themselves are short, and that's not where you need to spend the time, right? the way to do well is to spend the time preparing for those quizzes, right? Making sure that you've read everything backwards and forwards, making sure that you're making notes for yourself, making sure you've watched all those videos, making sure you're clear on terms, you've addressed any practice problems, things like that. And so you'll have a quiz pretty regularly, but the work associated with it is really where it's at. Okay. Along with the quizzes, there's going to be one assignment where you watch a documentary, right? Watch a film and have a series of short answer questions on the basis of that film, right? So you'll see something like that. There's going to be an assignment where you work with some economic numbers, right? One of the most important things to get from this class or any economics class is to understand all this economic data that's coming your way. And so we have one assignment where we'll take a look at some actual real-world numbers that tell us a story about what's happening in our economy right now. I kind of like that one. What else? We'll have discussions, right? Every online class, you're going to have discussions. We have these too. So there's a handful of those throughout the semester. And then finally, the biggest assignment of the term is that there is a paper that you'll be writing on the Great Depression, right? If there's one economic event that everyone should know about after an economic history class, it's the Great Depression. And so we have a big assignment on that. That's later in the semester, but be ready for that. So there you go, guys. Those are the different assignments that you're going to encounter. If you want to read up on them some more, additionally, check out the Getting Started module and the syllabus. It's going to have information on that as we go. What else? Let me say a few words about textbook, office hours, and the general organization of the class. Some more on that. Let's see here. The textbook that you're going to want is going to look like this: History of the American Economy by Walton and Rockoff. It's kind of got a glare, doesn't it? There we go. That's better. This is the one that you want. I encourage you to get a cheap version, right? There's expensive versions and cheap versions. You guys know this already. You can get an older edition. That's okay. I wouldn't go too far back, but if you're looking at 12th, 13th, 11th, somewhere in that neighborhood, you're going to be just fine, I think, with respect to the textbook. You can send me an email if you have questions on that as well. What else? Office hours. Obviously, we won't be having office hours face-to-face as we might in a regular semester. But you still have an opportunity to come ask questions if you want to. We'll do that through Zoom. I've set it up so that there will be a recurring Zoom conference taking place every Tuesday at noon. I'll be logged in, and if you have questions and want to come talk, you can just click on the link and attend office hours just like that. You can send me an email if you have any questions on that, but that's how that will be structured. And if you have a conflict from 12 to 1, just let me know, and we'll see if we can work out a different time to do a little Zoom conference as well. To access the office hours, I put in the Getting Started module. You guys will see it. It's probably just under this video. A little link for office hours. Open that up, and then you'll see the link that corresponds with the Zoom conference. So that's how you do that. Lastly, then, I should have mentioned this earlier, but I forgot. I want you guys to check out the calendar in this class. That's a really useful way to stay on top of dates. You'll see I've designed it so that we have things coming due every Thursday, right? That helps me in terms of organization. I think it'll help you guys too. But take a look at that calendar. You can see what's coming up, whether it's going to be a module quiz or a discussion or a data set or whatever. There's something due every Thursday. And I'll send reminders as the term progresses. But if you click on that calendar link, you can look ahead, and that's a really good idea. Okay. I think that's everything. So I'm going to sign off for this one. Welcome to Econ 170. I'm looking forward to it, and see you guys in the next one. Bye.